The
illustrious Jabba bids you welcome. I'm going to regret this.
I'm Pete Mitchell. He's Peyton Jones. And this is the Church Planter Podcast, brought to you by Church Planter Magazine.
Hey, Church Planter, this is Pete Mitchell.
And this is Peyton Jones. Hey, the author of Church Plantology, the art and science of planting churches.
Wait, did you write a book?
I wrote a book. Did I not tell you about this?
What's this book all about? I've never heard about this.
Well, Peter, it is Church Plantology, the art and science. I had to read it for a second. The art and science of planting churches. Wait, what was it called again? The art and science of planting churches. So, yeah, it's in there, and I have you in the acknowledgments. I just wanted to let you know this book has your name in it.
But you spelled it P-E-A-T.
I did actually
forget the L.
Joseph Salmaraji. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But I spelled his name in the acknowledgments. He goes, hey, he like mockingly said, to Joseph Salmaraji, the best bibliography builder. And I did a screenshot, but it was Joseph Slamaraji.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, oops. And then I said, no, accident or cool handle. You decide.
What did he decide? That's the important question.
I think he saw right through me. Yeah, you're a moron, and you screwed up my name in your acknowledgments. Thanks for nothing.
When does that book actually come out?
It comes out this month, April 20th.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and Pete, they have an Audible.
They did an Audible?
They did an Audible by the same guy who did Church Zero. And that dude was awesome. I hunted that dude down like a bounty hunter, like a Mandalorian. And I got him and froze him in carbonite. And now he did my book. I couldn't find him anywhere. And then finally I was able to get a hold of him, and he did it. He did it fast, dude. Like I got him the name. And then like the next week I wrote him and said, hey, were you guys able to set something up with him? And they go, yeah, he's halfway done. That dude hit the studio hard, man, because that's a lot of.
He's like, no one requests me. I got to go right there and do this guy's book.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you something. I actually spoke to him on the phone, and we had a rad talk because I said, man, look, I'm telling you, you read that book like a champ. I haven't heard this one, but I'm like, he goes, I have to tell you. He goes, I do a lot of books. And he goes, that book really, really spoke to me. He goes, I loved that book. He's like, man. So it was weird. We had never talked before.
So what's funny is he says that to all the authors.
Just pick me again. Pick me.
That's funny. Because was he even a Christian? Do you know?
Oh, yeah. He was a Christian. Yeah. He works for Moody Radio. His name is
okay. I thought he was just some random voice actor.
No, his name's John Gager, and he works for Moody Radio. And yeah, dude, he's awesome. It was funny to talk to him on the phone. I'm like, it's weird that we've never spoken. So, yeah.
Nice.
So, anyways, yeah. So that's it. So let's talk about Satan's shoes.
Ooh, got a pair?
No, but they're only $1,000, Pete.
And there's only 666 of them being made, so it's a limited
edition. See, now that shocks me that they're not like 10,000 or $6,666.
Well, you got to think about it. You have to come up with 666 drops of your own blood.
That's true.
Stick in the shoe.
It's funny because we were talking about this on Ministry Ninja. We just reference it because we're in the chapter that deals with the Samaritans. I did not realize this individual that he was from the LGBT community. And so Barry, one of the co-hosts on there, he brought up a really good point. He's like, I've seen a lot of responses to this guy like, hey, this guy, he said, look, you didn't want me on your team, so I joined the other team. And I thought that was interesting. But But I remember looking at the shoes and reading some of the responses and thinking, why are you guys so afraid of this? Like, people were convinced, like, I'm going to get some kind of like demonic cooties from these things. You know, I better not ever wear a pair of Nikes again. And the amount of,
and I heard Nike is suing them because it has nothing to do with Nike.
Right. I mean, this, you know, and we all know it's a publicity move. He knew exactly what he's doing.
Why can't I think of publicity moves that good? That's all I got to say.
Yeah. What are we doing for a 666th episode, huh?
I don't know, but we're giving everyone a drop of angel blood, and it's going to be beautiful and white.
I do think we need to talk about the devil. That one needs to be spiritual warfare, or we could talk the Antichrist. We don't talk things like that.
We either go back to exorcisms for 666, which is always the one that I hate.
Yeah.
Or Antichrist. I like where
you're not a fan. You're not a fan of it. You know, I haven't been in one of those for a while, but I did tell you I did the house cleansing. That was something.
Yeah, because you even mentioned the injury that your wife sustained.
Yeah. Trippy. But back to Satan's shoes. Yeah, you know, the part that weirds me out is the part where the blood's in it. Now that to me does seem a little demonic. Because
not only that, but think about like the serious health concerns here. Like, this is the day and age of COVID,
right?
And you're actually just putting blood in shoes,
right?
I mean, come on, that's just gross.
Yeah, it is gross, but it also, you know, from a biblical perspective, you know, you can have your pentagram, you can call them Satan's shoes, you can have that. It doesn't bother me. You can do all that. There's no power in in your God. But I will say the blood part of it is a desecration. I mean, even in the scripture, God's like, hey, the life's in the blood. You treat the blood with respect. Your blood there's a theology. I mean, when Cain kills Abel, God says his blood cries out to me from the ground. Like, God takes blood seriously. Like, that's kind of a big deal. So
I wonder if he's actually putting blood in it, or if that was just all a lie.
Oh, it's totally food coloring, dude.
Well, because it was like 60 cc of food coloring and 1 drop of blood. And I'm like,
oh, is it?
Yeah, it was something like that.
Interesting. Yeah, because I was thinking it has to be, blood won't keep like that.
No, it certainly won't. Not at all.
Yeah. So, but you know, it's interesting. I do find it funny what people get all spun out over.
Well, I didn't honestly think much of it. I was just like, whatever.
I did think how funny it would be, though, if you or I turned up with a pair of those on our feet at our next speaking event.
Wow. No way. No stinking way. Never. Yeah. But I know what I'm going to do with my stimulus money.
Well, I'm just saying, Pete, you said you can never think of controversial marketing things like that. I'm just saying. Someone just came up with one for us.
I'm telling you, I'm not that good of a thinker. I can't come up with that stuff.
Yeah. But if you wore them, that would create its own controversy. You would be on Preachers and Sneakers.
No, I wouldn't, because I'm a nobody. Like, you might have told your publisher I'm an influencer, but come on, I'm a nobody.
You are. You run the Church Planner podcast, Pete.
And hasn't God punished me for that?
Yes, perhaps. It
reminds me of there was a scene in Cheers when remember Frasier was with Diane, and then Sam ends up taking Diane away from Frasier.
Yeah. And
Sam and Frasier are talking one time, and he's like, I'd never do anything to you. And he goes, what about Diane? He goes, and didn't God punish me for that?
That's great, man. I've never seen Frasier.
I've seen it. I mean, it was good. It was good as far as sitcoms go.
That's what I heard.
Most
it was like number one show in America for years. I end up never seeing these number one shows. Yeah, it was number one. Seinfeld was obviously sitcoms.
Seinfeld, I
saw
loved
that, of course. Yeah, it was good. I quote it on a regular basis. Somebody in a prayer meeting this morning was like, Peyton, Noah. And I go, no, when you say it like that, it just reminds me of Newman. I mean, I can't even do it. The amount of hatred that when they would say each other's name, Jerry.
Yeah, that was good.
That's one of my favorite parts of that whole show. Is just when those.
There was a great scene when Kramer had gone to the roof and like put butter all over himself and he laid out in the sun, and then Newman sees him and Newman's like, yeah, you look good right now. Like he was a big chicken or something.
So funny. That just takes me back to Warner Brothers, to the times where, the cartoon characters will look at each other and they'd see a big pork chop or a ham bone or
Those are the good old days back when cartoons were fun.
Oh yeah. Cartoon Warner
Back
Brothers.
before cancel culture. And now they cancel all of my favorite cartoons. Yosemite Sam's got no guns. I mean, he just now just does nothing. I mean,
what does he do then? Does he like shoot off firecrackers out of his hands?
That's it. No guns. Just
That's great. He stomps his feet a bunch. That's rad.
Darn it to heck.
That's great.
Man. Hey, how's the house coming along?
Oh, don't ask.
Really?
Yeah. So, don't ask. It's we hit a little snag. Let's just say when the man says, I know how to tile, he doesn't know how to tile. Don't take that for granted.
Oh, no.
Take it off my wall. You're done. So,
wow.
Yeah. But other than that, things are good. Tape and Mud finishes today. And, yeah.
Hey, have you gotten your dog fixed yet?
Nope. Can't do it till she's a year.
Really? Is that what they're waiting for?
Yeah.
Huh.
This does not seem appropriate podcast talk, Pete.
Well,
This seems like you and I are just hanging out.
If someone's listening to our podcast after all these years, they kind of know this is what our podcast is.
That's true. If you are looking for a podcast to get straight into it, Ministry Ninja and From Concealment, but that one's about guns. Mine's still about ministry. So
mine's more the From Concealment is more about politics than even guns.
Yeah.
Because it's mainly Dan and I sitting there just roasting on every elected official on the planet.
That's rad. I need to listen to. I've only listened to one episode.
Was it the one where I talked about you in?
No, I didn't know you talked about me.
I don't.
So, do you guys say nice things about me or bad things about me?
We actually have code names. We have code names for most of the people because we're like, look, the ATF is already going to come after us. So
that's rad.
Like there's one guy who's he's a faithful listener. He attended Refuge Long Beach. I don't know if he still does anymore. You would know who he is 100%. Okay. And
right.
So our code name for him is Black Ops. So we live stream it on Facebook like this. We're like, oh, Black Ops has a great comment, and what was funny is all of a sudden Dan one day goes, oh, Black Ops. That's why you wanted that code name. You're black. I didn't realize you were black.
That's rad.
So funny.
So rad.
But yeah, no, that's a fun podcast. And I think we have a lot of pastors who listen, and I think it resonates with them because Dan's a pastor, right? It's like we got a gun-toting pastor who's on a gun podcast. It's awesome.
Who would have thought that would ever be a thing?
I would like it to be a bigger thing, but it's I don't think it'll ever be bigger.
No, probably not.
Just be what it is. Just fun. Good times.
Yeah. Yeah.
I Black Ops. There he is. He's on our Facebook feed. I love it.
He's like, I'm here. It's great.
Oh.
So, speaking of,
by the way, I'm convinced he doesn't work at all because he shows up for every one of my Facebook feeds. I don't know what he does, but he shows up.
So I have I want to kick into, speaking of Long Beach, I want to kick into our topic. You ready?
Yeah.
It's a big topic.
Wait. Great Scott. It's time for this week's topic.
Let's get down to the nitty gritty.
We don't need a soundboard. We're better than the soundboard.
I got a little huskiness.
I like it
on that. That was all right. All right. Well, our topic today is the homeless crisis and the church. We are in a homeless crisis. We have been for a long time, but COVID-19 kind of exacerbated it. If you noticed, the government ferry came and swept all of the homeless off the street during COVID-19, housed them somewhere, and now with the stimulus money that's been paid out to various cities, the government has now decided that they're going to solve the problem by either buying hotels or creating tent cities that are organized tent cities, like they have in Oceanside.
They have an
right along the main
city?
strip. Yeah, they have an organized tent city. There's
What exactly is an organized tent city?
It's kind of like this: storage tent, shelter tent, shelter tent, storage tent, latrine, storage tent, shelter tent, all in a line that stretches a mile long. And it's in between the main strip of road, the train tracks, and the government owns that little strip of land. And that's where they've decided to put tent city. It's just big enough to fit, a giant column of this sequence of tents. Now, it is clean. It is organized. They have homeless people that, kind of like we found at Refuge Long Beach, who were in various states of functionality that are able to walk up and down and be kind of like, almost like dorm moms, like room monitors, like, hey, you guys, they keep it clean, yada, yada. Now the city thinks this is fantastic, but it's really not, right? Like in my town, they've bought up, I think 3 plots where houses were, and they're building a facility for the mentally ill. The problem is they're not taking them off the streets in our neighborhood. They're busing them in from other areas. And so nobody really has any clue what's going on. All we know is that COVID has kind of thrust the crisis that's been building and growing in the last 10 years, and just really brought it to a head. And so then the question is raised, what is the church's role in this? Because I'll tell you, at Refuge Long Beach, that very much became a part of our ministry because it was a very real part of the neighborhood we were in. So if you're listening in a rural community where you've never seen a homeless person, you don't even know what it is we're talking about, this probably is not going to be as big of a help. But if you're in a major city, you know exactly what we're talking about. And, we should have had that guy Jay on the podcast from the documentary on Netflix, the pastor in that South Dakota town where he let all the fracking was going on, and he let them all live in the church. Did we interview him or not? No, we just talked about it, right?
We never interviewed him because I think he kind of threw him under the bus in one of our episodes accidentally. And I think he listened to it and it was like, maybe I'm not going to go on their podcast after.
Oh, really? Did I throw him under the bus? Yeah. The things I say.
I know it wasn't me.
The other guest that I still think about and kind of mourn that I didn't get him was a guy that got rescued off that island. Remember that?
Yes.
And I still kind of wish, because he's like, I started praying, like he'd, and then he
tell everyone the story. You can't tell them about got rescued off the island.
I don't remember the story. I just remember island guy who got rescued.
Where in the world was it?
I don't remember. See, I'm terrible.
Dude was a fisherman in like some part of the world. He like loses his boat and he swims to an island, a deserted island where there's just tons of islands everywhere. And it was like, 120 degrees out. He's getting dehydrated. He almost dies like a day later. And it just so happens that a film crew from a reality TV show happened to be going by and they saved him. And it was literally just out of the blue, just happened to be coming by, filming a reality TV show. And the dude gets saved. Otherwise, he would have died on that island.
So cool. Yeah. And it was kind of like The Castaway. The movie The Castaway, but it was like the real deal. And I'm like,
but it would have been dead in a day as opposed to living there for 5 years.
We need to get him on the podcast, eh? I don't know. Just because it was interesting, it had nothing to do with church planning, and we never did it.
All we got to do to find him is just Google who's been deserted on an island and got saved by a reality TV crew, and then boom, we'll find the guy.
That's true.
And then we got to contact him in whatever country he lives in to get him to actually show up.
Absolutely. And but he's like, yeah, that'd be $1,000.
Yeah, now he's like $666, and I need to get my tennis shoes.
Oh my gosh. So, anyways, so going back to this, what's interesting, my pastor, because those of you that know, right now I'm not planting, I'm helping a little church plant. He actually spoke on this. He had a real burden, and he was talking about it, and he just shared a little bit about, hey, like in our city, this is where I was going. In our city, we have, the city council, most city councils are worried about it. Historically, Ronald Reagan emptied, he cut the funding that went to psych hospitals. So what happened was suddenly you had an influx of people out on the streets. Now, there is not a lot of care for homeless people long term. I mean, it's short term. They get picked up by the police, taken to an emergency room. A doctor will evaluate them. They'll be put on a 24 to 48 hour hold. They'll be taken to a lockdown facility. They'll get stabilized. They get turned back out on the streets. They don't get their medication. It's a revolving door. They'll be back in short term, get stabilized. So when I worked in a lockdown unit in Southern California, the busiest psych hospital in SoCal, I knew homeless people by name. Like, I just knew him. Oh, he's back. Okay. Boom. And so what we haven't done is by cutting that government funding, we haven't created a solution. It's a very expensive solution, but it's also a very expensive problem. And what societies are feeling right now is, hey, we're not dealing with the problem. What the government is now doing is saying, hey, society, city, we can't deal with it. You deal with it. Here, they're out on your streets now. And now with the stimulus money, they've been buying hotels. They've been, like I said, demolishing buildings, building a center. Things are happening. But the problem is the insurances are in the middle. There's no end of programs for people to go through. But if you don't have somebody coming alongside homeless people, you won't actually see the change. So the return back to homelessness, I heard my pastor shared this statistic, it's 80%, right? Which is about what we saw, right? Like we were able to help a few people get up and off the streets. We worked with local businesses to get them in the community, but it was the idea of withness. We were with them. We advocated for them. We held their hand and discipled them. So what you're finding is that people who run homeless programs, shelters, this and that, there's no one I've ever met that works with homeless on a regular basis, and I mean professionally, like in a secular sphere, who has ever said, we don't need the church can't help us. It's the opposite. They say we need church communities to help us because the programs are here. What we can't do is come alongside and disciple and mentor and befriend and almost be kind of like what an AA counselor is or sponsor to an addict. It is a full-time discipleship. It is taking umbrage, responsibility, and actually walking through with them, getting involved in their lives. Recently, this week, in my inbox, I got something very interesting. I've just kind of been chewing on it a bit, and I kind of want to check it out, but it's from churchleaders.com. And the headline was Free Mental Health Coach Training, details inside. So it says, watch a video about a COVID evangelism opportunity to qualify. And it's Dare to Care. I don't know anything about these guys, so I'm not advocating this. But it says mental health coach first responder training, 101 foundations of mental health coaching. So there's some type of certification, and it's got the AACC, the IBCC. These are These are recognized Christian care agencies that certify, and you can get certified. So you can imagine, going to a city council meeting, which many city councils will have, like in Oceanside, California, they've got a community meeting where they invite church leaders to discuss the homeless issues. And obviously during COVID, all that stopped. All meetings like that stopped. But now we've got a crisis that's right on our doorsteps. So the question is, what can the church do? Well, the church does need to get involved. The church is necessary for many of these programs to work, because the church needs to be a bridge. So this is one of the things that, for me, if I'm planning a church, you don't have to be a homeless ministry church, but you can't be like the parable of the Good Samaritan. You can't be the priest or the Levite that just walks down the road and just goes, that's not my problem. I got, man of God, churchy religious things to take care of. I'm too busy. I can't do that. Somebody has to stop, right? Somebody has to. So if your church plant isn't caring for the marginalized, and the homeless would be the marginalized, and there's an issue. Now, let me say this. Do not be like the churches that just go give them things and enable them. And so picture, like, we're in Refuge Long Beach. One of the things we did was we ate a meal as a church. Now, there were homeless people there. They came to our church, and we learned to eat together. That was something having homeless people in our community taught us, but it was very first century. But what we were careful not to do in talking with the city's like, please don't bring them food all week. Please do not come and enable them. We are trying, if you really want to help, find you to your church service, find the meal becomes a doorway to get to know them. It becomes a front porch, but please do more than that. Please get involved with them and help them step up. And that became our mission, because they're like, look, the residents are going to hate you as a church if you come into the community and all you do is give them tents and blankets and food to keep living in that neighborhood. That's going to be a problem. And the citizens of the street, the neighborhood you're in, will hate your guts, because you are enabling their front yards to be pooped in, their houses and garages to be broken into, their garden sheds. You're an enabler, and you will quickly become a target of the community. And that was interesting. It was good counsel, good advice. So we had to learn a balanced approach when we started working with the city, because it's a lot simpler than just giving someone a blanket or food. There's more to do.
Such as?
Well, Pete, funny you should mention that. I mean, there's a bunch of things. There's everything from, like I said, working with local businesses, saying, hey, do you, what meds are you on? I personally think something like that mental health coaching would be huge, because then you can be getting involved in the front lines, working with various organizations and starting to form a crisis team that can respond to this. You got to be really careful, because I'm not saying like go out there and take the place of the police or whatever. People are armed. Homeless people know how to use their weapons. They defend themselves and attack on a regular basis. I'm not saying put yourself in a dangerous situation, but I'm saying when your community has a gaping wound, you're basically trained in first aid, So there's a lot of things you can do. As the church, one of the things we used to do, we had a homeless Bible study led by a homeless person who had come to faith. And, kind of like we were saying, like that dorm mom, the room monitor, Alex was that for us. He was one of the guys we helped get off the street. We helped him get his forklift operating license. And he still to this day works in a warehouse with, one of our members there, and still goes out on mission. And that would be, that's the goal. That's got to be the goal. But if I told you the number of man hours and effort that it took on behalf of some of our people to get Alex where he needed to be, I mean, there's a couple of things. Number one, person has to be ready to go there. Like you can't, oh, come on. You're pulling someone who's just dragging their feet. You don't ever do that. you identify the people that really do want to get out of their situation and are capable. Some people are not capable of escaping their homelessness, and you have to recognize that. So where does it go? How do we help? So that's kind of where it's at, man. Those are some of the things you got to do.
See, a lot of this reminds me of Bob Goff, and we had him in the magazine. Was he on the podcast too?
No, we've never interviewed him.
Yeah, so he was in the magazine. I think he gave us an article or something like that. And the gist of it was pick a fight. Like, you got to pick a fight with something.
Yeah.
And like, let me give you an example here. One, this guy I went to college with, we connected up a couple of years back, and we had both gone to the same church for a while, and we were talking about family. And I think they either adopted a couple of kids or they were foster kids. I couldn't remember what. And he goes, well, you remember, at Park Crest, which was the name of the church that we'd both gone to, he goes, they had a big push where they were really like, hey, we need to get involved in the community. And that was the fight that they picked, was foster kids. Like, we need to step up as a church and start, taking on foster kids. And they took it seriously. Right. And it was a fight that people could get around, and they were attracted to it. And apparently a lot of people took on foster kids, and some adopted, like I think this guy did. I don't remember exactly. It could have been long-term fosters too, for all I remember. But your church needs to pick some sort of fight, right? That everyone can look at and go, this is worthy of getting behind. I look at my current church, and they're very big into missions. And so, like, right now, and they do this every year, they have all their missionaries, they're either in town, and they'll each take a Sunday and give like a little report on this is what we're doing. Or like right now, a lot of it's being done via video because of COVID, and maybe not be able to leave where they're at and re-enter the US or whatever. But that's like their fight. Their fight is missions. Like, we're really big on that. And I would say the homeless one is one that most people can get their minds around, especially millennials, right? This is a big deal to millennials. So you can totally reach out to the millennial community by being like, this is our fight. This is the one we're picking.
Well, that's it. I mean, giving, if it's not mental health assistance, it's maybe addiction recovery assistance. It's like a sponsorship. Hey, Eden, I'm doing a podcast, babe. Stop yelling for mom. She's outside. Only professional here on the Church Planter Podcast. So, and if it's not that, it may, like Alex, it could be, a matter of, guys like, I don't have an address. We used to get that a lot where they're like, I don't have an address. I applied for a job, but they want an address. Can I use a church's address? Yes, you can. So, we tended to do little things for people that we could to help them step up. I know that this week, and I've got to check on it, one of our guys over at Remnant, which is now the mission that is launched out of Refuge Long Beach after the merger, is they are there, and they're like, hey, we're going to get this couple to rehab. And that he's put himself in the place of a sponsor, and he's with them every day until they got to rehab. And I had to say, hey, you need to really be there for them in the last 24 hours, because before someone goes into rehab, they party hard, because I think, it's the last dance of Mary Jane. I'm going to, one more time to kill the pain. Right. I'm going to, and so unfortunately, when people overdosed, they would overdose before they came in on methadone or whatever it was. And then unfortunately they would die in rehab, because, just is the way it works. It's what people do. And so it's a high danger of overdosing either in your first 24 hours after you get into rehab or right before you get there. And so, there's a lot, and it's like any type of first responder work. There's a lot of trauma. It saps your energy. So the church community, there's a lot you can do. But one thing I would say, like Pete was saying, when you pick a fight, this is one of those fights, kind of like in Russia, right? In Soviet Union, fight pick you, like this is one of those things where the homeless fight has picked the church. You don't get to pick this one. This is a crisis on your doorstep. And like I said, if it were not, there's so many other issues where I feel, it's kind of like James said, to care for the widow and orphan. True religion is this. You kind of have to deal with that one because the scripture tells you this is what you need to be. This is true religion, to care for those who can't care for themselves. But then with the homeless issue, it's the dude sitting on the side of the highway, it's Peter walking by the beggar at the temple gate called Beautiful. Like he just can't walk by. The Good Samaritan, you can't walk by. Jesus just slams religious people like, you walk by this. And so for me, I feel that responsibility. It's so funny because Andrew and I, we talk about it because I'm like, hey, I think when we plant again, because those of you who remember, I am starting that Bible training center. Like that is happening. I put it on hold when the textbook offer came because I'm like, there's no way I can plant and do this. And I think I'm supposed to write this book. Did I tell you I was writing a textbook?
Wait, what's this now?
Yeah, it's called Church Plantology. It's right here. It's $35. You can get it on Amazon. It launches April 20th. But anyways, back to my point. Cha-ching! I owe a couple of cha-chings. Cha-ching.
We forgot about the cha-ching.
I did. It's back to that. So, but anyways, but what I was going to say, I did totally distract myself, and it was a good point. What was I saying?
You and Andrea were talking about.
We were just talking because, then after I literally am writing this book during COVID. So thank God for his wisdom, because for those of you that planted during COVID, I'm sorry, right? Like that was tough. But for me, I tell Andrea, I'm like, hey, I want to start this Bible training center. I want to do it in Oceanside Boulevard. And this is before Tent City. And Andrea made the statement. I got it. Like I was kind of there myself. She goes, I don't want to do another homeless church. And it's not that our church was a homeless church, but I mean, that was a very big part of our outreach and ministry.
It was like 30% of the people.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and heading into this now, I don't think we have a choice. I just think it's there. I mean, it's not what anyone sets out to do. You know what I'm saying? Nobody sets out in the morning like, hey, I think I'll start a homeless church. But it just, if you're in a city, it's chosen you. It's picked you. And you can't ignore it. There's just certain things you can't ignore. And that's one of them. Mm. So, but with that, I mean, any other thoughts, questions, musings, jokes? Knock jokes. I'll take anything, Pete.
No, I just, I think back to that documentary, man. I wish I remember the name of it with Jay, because he's a Facebook friend. So I see him every once in a while. I don't remember his last name. It's like Reineke or something like that. But so like I was saying before, this is a church that it's in the middle of like South Dakota or one of the Dakotas or something. I don't know. One of those states, the Dakota type state.
I think it was.
It's where the fracking was all going on, right? So it was this huge boom. Everyone's coming there. And the problem is there's not enough places for people to literally stay. And you can't get a job, like you said, because they don't have an address. And so he was letting people stay at the church. They were literally anywhere where there was ground. Right. You could sleep on the ground. And it was pissing off everybody.
Yeah.
It was pissing off the neighbors. It was pissing off the members because, now they got to come into their church and it stinks because all these people haven't showered. And I'm just thinking, and he was sitting there going, but how do we not do this? How do we not take people in? And I think there's got to be, like you said, you don't just provide them a place to stay. Like it's got to be something more. I don't know what it is, but and I don't know I don't even remember if he did that stuff, but I mean, there's definitely, I mean, if you have that as an asset, like if you've got a building as your church,
you have to be careful with it. And in the same reason that, you're saying like with the neighborhood, where the neighborhood was just ticked. Like in my city,
I think they got the city council to go after the church and everything,
So in my city, the city council has all of this land all around, like real estate's a premium here, and they have acres of land around the city council building. They didn't have to demolish a few houses downtown. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They have the land. They just went, oh, heck no, not here. Acres and acres of land. You can't even see the city council building from the main road. That's how much land they have. Wow. And they just choose not to develop it and not to do anything on it. But hello, but again, it's that. Well, and where did they put the mental health homeless thing that I was telling you about? In the barrio,
of course,
of my city, which again to me is extremely insulting. Like I'm angry about that. That's an injustice. You actually took that and you put that in that neighborhood with people that are working hard and trying to improve their lives, and you just laid that on them as well. Like that makes me mad because I know people in the barrio. I know hardworking, good people in the barrio. They don't deserve that. Right? They're not going to put it in the rich neighborhood. So you'll start getting me going. But and that's an area, by the way, that's an old part of my city that people have lived there, like families have been there for hundreds of years or, over 100 years. And they are a pillar, but they are like a thorn in the side of the city that wants to go big. It's almost like they're trying to drive them out, and it's wrong. And so what I'm saying is it goes back to advocacy. If it came down to me, right? If you looked at me and said, hey, Peyton, how would you deal with this? The mental health is the key issue. That's where everything kind of went wrong. That's where we're not addressing the problem. It's kind of like if you have a flesh wound and I give you a Band-Aid. That's been our approach. But if I said, hey, no, you need surgery there, pal. But what I would do is you would have to, and I know you're going to totally disagree with this approach. To me, this is a government issue. The government needs to do it because either nobody else is or nobody's capable. We have a lot of programs, tons, no end of programs, but we don't have the mental health stuff that we actually need. And the problem with working with the existing system is insurance is involved in corrupting everything. So the people end up suffering. If the government,
unfortunately, it would be worse if it was just government only, because look at the VA. It's totally just a nightmare.
Well, this is what I'm saying, going back to the advocacy,
right?
That the government does it, but they are accountable to the community faith groups and charity groups. They're accountable. There is a board of accountability, and they would never put themselves in that position. But if that were something that were able to happen, where the faith community says, yes, we will serve as the bridge. Various faith, it would have to be various. It couldn't just be Christians, be faith groups and charities that form a board and serve as the bridge. The church would have it. You see, the church is the manpower. The church is already the manpower.
I think the church just needs to do it. I think you're right. I do disagree that government needs to be involved. You got to get government out of this. But all you're going to end up with is more people on the take. All these churches and nonprofits, they're going to get bought off like it has historically. Like whenever money is not accountable, this is where the corruption comes from. So we have to get rid of that. And of course, Peyton's of course talking to people off camera, which is, nothing but a professional podcast here.
My labor is bringing another labor in. And so, hey, but that actually is my signal. I have to go. I gotta go.
Wait, so before you go, how do you make sure that you get all your bookkeeping done and your accounting and all that while you're out there taking care of the homeless problem?
Well, the government will set up a program for you. No, I'm teasing. SimplifiedChurch.com.
Better than the government. That should be their new slogan. SimplifiedChurch.com. We're better than the government.
Oh, nice. Nice. Although we'll help you deal with the government. They are kind of the middleman. They are the advocate for you. SimplifiedChurch.com. They will take care of all of your IRS needs, your compliancy, your bookkeeping, your payroll services, so much more. They'll help you make a budget. So SimplifiedChurch.com. Join them today and tell them that Peyton and Pete sent you. Well, that's all we got time for because I got to go. I got more laborers turning up and, well, you know, that work waits for no man or beast, Pete.
All right. Well,
house must get finished.
Give them the slogan and we're out.
This has been Pete Jones and Pete Mitchell reminding you if you want to reach the ones nobody's reaching, you need to go where nobody's going and do what nobody's doing.
Thanks for joining us for another weekly episode of the Church Planter Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Peyton Jones. We'd love to hear your comments on this episode of the Church Planter Podcast. Visit us online and let us know what you thought at churchplanterpodcast.com. If you subscribe to us via iTunes and have enjoyed the podcast, leave us a positive review. The more positive reviews we receive in iTunes, the more iTunes will promote us to other church planners who would benefit from this show. This podcast is brought to you by the Church Planter Magazine, which is available in the iTunes newsstand or online via churchplantermagazine.com.